GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Obviously, last night we had big sell-off in Bitcoin, led by the stock markets. Obviously, FOMC moved the markets. Jerome Powell coming out and saying we were, or saying he's now forecasting two interest rate cuts rather than four, which the market had been pricing in for 2025. So this really gave the markets quite a big rocking. And we talked about, I jumped on an emergency stream yesterday, emergency update, just to say, look, where is Bitcoin going to go from here? And I talked about a very, very key level here on Bitcoin, which was our zero point 0.5 Fibonacci retracement from our late November swing low to December swing high. And also, I looked at the swing low from the start of November as well, just to capture all of the price action since the last pullback at the start of this move. The push from around 85k up to just shy of 109k, and that was coming in at our 382. So we had some Fibonacci confluence. We also had this ascending trend line, which I did say we could wick below because there's likely to be some liquidity below here that the market makers might want to come and catch. But I said this would be strong support. I even drew a sort of little yellow box here to say I thought this is where price could run to and bounce from, and that's exactly what we've seen. And now we are back above what is key support here at around about 102,000, about 101.8 thousand. Obviously, that is these highs. I'm just actually going to move this line sort of slightly up to around about 102,000, as I think that is probably the most relevant level, obviously being the round number there. So as long as we can remain above this 102,000, I think Bitcoin probably can grind it out here. Maybe we come down and we make one more secondary test of this low. Maybe we come down to 100,000 again just to test it one more time. Obviously, this ascending trend line is still in play, but I am thinking that things are looking fairly good here as far as recovery goes. This is the reaction that I wanted to see from this level, and that's what we've got. This is what we've talked about. Obviously, I said there's no point getting too bearish or looking for lower levels whilst we're holding this ascending channel. Obviously, the channel I actually drew out on this chart here on the index chart, and we've come sort of close to that. Obviously, sort of doing a line of best fit. I guess you could probably adjust this a little bit higher. It's a little bit higher on my other chart, but I've said when this failed, we're looking to hold support at the midpoint. We've lost support at the midpoint. We've now come down to the bottom of the channel. That's entirely normal. That's still looking fairly healthy. I mean, you would still say this is an uptrend with higher highs, higher lows, higher high, higher low, higher high. Is this a higher low? Potentially it is. And I'm expecting that Bitcoin, like I say, if it can get above or hold above this 102 level, you can see that this 102 level, again, I've done it as 101.5, but if we move this slightly higher to closer to 102, you can see that we've rejected off this. We got above it, we couldn't hold it, we rejected off it once, we came up, front run it, rejected again, rejected again, rejected again before we finally broke through. And now we've come through it. And really what we want to do is we want to re-hold this level, this 102,000 level. We want to start to see acceptance in Bitcoin. I mean, I think best case scenario, Bitcoin could run on a bit higher here to the midpoint of this channel. Maybe it rejects on the first attempt, starts to build out some structure sideways, and then we take another attempt higher. So Bitcoin is looking okay here. I'm not going to say it's looking amazingly healthy, but it's also not looking terrible. So we just have to be honest. We have to look at the facts that are in front of us, and we have to say, in terms of damage report, what is the damage that has been done to our longer term trends? Obviously, losing this 102,000 level for me was damage. Losing this midpoint was damage, but we have held the bottom end of this, and we have held this 99,500 resistance or now support as well. Obviously, this was resistance back in November. This was November's high. So we've come into November's high. We found support there. We're starting to push up. So for me, like I say, just going back to this charts with the Fibonacci's, obviously this is starting to look quite messy. I will just remove one of these now. We'll just keep the most recent one on, as I think it's a bit more relevant. Like I say, we are constructive here. I mean, if we can get back above this 103.6 thousand, this high here, and get back into this sort of range up in this area between 103,500 and 108, then we're going to be looking really good for continuation. And I think one interesting piece of analysis I heard yesterday was the fact that the Federal Reserve have basically now lowballed the predictions for next year. So they've made a number of assumptions. They've made the assumption that inflation is going to maintain as current levels, if not a little bit higher. They've also assumed that the labour market is going to maintain its strong levels at the moment. Unemployment rate is going to stay either where it is or lower. And they're just going to, at the moment, be doing two rate cuts. And they've basically set the stage now to be able to turn around if unemployment does creep up, if inflation comes off a bit, to then turn around and say, actually, we're going to cut more, which would then be a positive surprise next year. So effectively what they've done with this meeting is they've lowballed expectations. So there's probably not going to be more sort of unexpected news or more hawkish language from Jerome Powell or the Fed, more so than what we've seen from yesterday's meeting. So I think when the market does reprice two rate cuts in, it's not going to be in a situation where it's looking to then having to reprice further hawkishness. I think we're in a situation where the market really, if there's going to be a surprise, it'll be a positive surprise, a surprise to the upside in terms of there'll be more cuts and potentially that could push on the stock market and the crypto markets to higher levels and put more pressure on the dollar. So I think it sets us up fairly nicely. Like I say, if we can maintain here, if despite what has happened yesterday, if Bitcoin can pull itself back around and get back up towards its highs again, then and sort of shrug off the comments from Jerome Powell yesterday, it really will be a sign of strength in the market, and that will make me even more bullish going into next year. So yeah, we've got to be a little bit careful. We've got to be on the watch for a lower high here, potentially this 103.8 thousand might be an area that the price rejects. And then obviously if that is a lower high, we've just got to be careful. I mean, I'm not in a situation now where I'm looking to rush into more positions. I did explain yesterday that part of my leverage account has been entered back into the market at about 50%. I've probably gone a little bit over 50% today. So I'm holding probably about I'd say about 35 to 40% back. And those positions I'll be looking to enter probably on a retest. I honestly think after this reaction, that's probably the low from this entire event in. And like I say, Bitcoin for now has held support. So until it starts to fail this support and it actually starts to get a decisive breakout from this sort of channel that price has been trading in, then I don't think there's really any massive cause for concern. And for me, it's probably just another shakeout. It's probably just another flush of these markets before we see much higher prices for Bitcoin, but especially for altcoins going into Q1 and Q2 of 2025. And if we just look at the liquidation heat map, then we can see here that we're starting to get a build-up of liquidity above price. So obviously that also supports the case that this was a really good flush out. We saw sort of 99, 98K traded. We've now managed to recover and we're starting to see sort of liquidity build up above the price. So I'm thinking to myself, look, there's a pretty major target here around sort of between 105 and 106,000. If Bitcoin could get itself up to 105, 106,000, it would get back above the midpoint of this channel. And up here, I'd be really, really optimistic that Bitcoin will get back to all-time highs very soon, and potentially we run on again to the top side of this channel, which would then take Bitcoin up to the 110,000 area, and maybe we see some further expansion from there. At that point, I probably will get a little bit cautious again. I think it probably makes some sense to de-risk at the top of this channel, but obviously at the bottom of this channel, certainly in the bottom half of this channel, that is now the value area. So I'm looking to, like I say, position in these zones. And if we look at the funding rate heat map, you can see we had already reset. We've never really gone back to where we were a couple of weeks ago, and or even last week before we saw last week's flush. And here you can see with some of these funding rates, I mean, we've got some really negative funding rates, ENA, really negative there, but sort of coming down here, we've got sort of WorldCoin on -8%. We've got near -7%. Most of these are all flat. A lot of them are in single digits. So, I mean, considering we're in a bull market and Bitcoin's trading above 100,000, there's no real signs of overheating right now in the altcoin sector at all. If we look at Ethereum, that is obviously our talisman for the altcoin space. We can see that Ethereum did break through its 382. So this is a level that we talked about yesterday, trying to hold. When I did the emergency stream, we'd actually come through that. And I said the next level will be this zero point 0.5, which is 3,560. That's exactly what we've come into. We've respected that level, a nice wick. We started to bounce. We're starting to reclaim some of these ascending diagonals. So Ethereum is looking constructive here. This isn't a complete full-on meltdown. This is a market that is showing signs of support, is showing some signs of resilience and strength, which is what I want to see. So, let's not get sort of too optimistic or too carried away with ourselves. We're still, in quite a critical area. We still need to make sure we hold these lows. But if Ethereum can hold this low, and we're starting to see this range emerge here. So obviously, sort of as a range from sort of high down to low, we've pretty much got the midpoint of this range coming in sort of around about sort of 3,800, 3,820. So if we can start to get above the midpoint of this range, and I'm gonna call it 3,800. If we can get above 3,800 and back above this descending channel, descending trend line, which we've been talking about on the weekly, has been major resistance. Obviously, we've closed 2 weekly candles above it already. We were working on a third weekly candle close. We've come down. So I'd love to see Ethereum push back up, creating another wick here and getting above this descending channel line. But obviously, we can see that in terms of like longer term, we've got a pretty critical area there. So I'd say it's really 3,820 is the sort of critical area that we really want to get back above on Ethereum. And just going back down to the 4 hour, we can see that this level has been, sort of respected as support until we've broken through. Will that now be resistance on a retest? And will from there we sort of come down and make another attempt at either one of these trend lines or back down to our 382 support potentially? But we just have to, I think, take, level by level here and, not get carried away, not get overly emotional, not get sort of too panicked or too scared when things are breaking down. On the flip side, let's not get too excited when things are starting to run higher. Just know that obviously we are buying in a discount zone here. Ethereum is at the bottom of its local range. Like I say, we could come down to the 618. Obviously, that would be retesting the high from November as well. So that would be really or from early November. So that would be a potential level that Ethereum might want to come down and tag if Bitcoin does start to roll over again and come back below 100,000. But for now, the markets are in recovery mode. They are in bounce mode. And we just really have to see how things play out over the next 24 to 48 hours. I think, tomorrow's close is going to be critical. Obviously, Friday close, so it's going to be the close for CME. And then obviously you've got the weekend close. I'd obviously like to see these markets start to reverse and put in some reversal candles going into the weekly closes, both on the Friday and Friday and Sunday. And if we actually look at the futures chart for Bitcoin, we can see that the breakdown, like I say, coming into about 98.8 thousand, we're starting to show some signs of recovery. So for CME futures, really, we want to get above the level we're at right now, which is, like I say, has been a critical resistance level. But let's see if we can get through this level and start to get acceptance above it. So around about here, sort of 102.6 thousand. So let's see if Bitcoin futures can close well. Let's just take a quick look at Solana as well, because Solana obviously broke down as well. So Solana, sort of big wick down to 200. So big round number there. And that's where we started to bounce. So obviously, I was saying we might come down to 100, 191 to 195 area. There's obviously going to be some confluence there. So if the markets do want to go for another attempt lower, have one more final flush, potentially Solana makes its way there. But for now, this is a pretty strong reversal in Solana. Obviously, buyers looking to step in. If we look at the daily chart, we can see that this is what has been a critical order block in terms of resistance level. And now, obviously, we started to flip that over to support. So we can actually sort of just run that across and see that as long as we're closing above sort of 200, 205, then Solana is looking good to me. And I do think at some point Solana will make its way up here and break out the top of this descending channel. And then we should start to get some acceleration to the upside. And really, again, it's a close above 235 that I'd want to see to indicate that Solana is about to have another attempt at its all-time highs. So, like I say, Solana has been relatively weak, but it's hanging on here, and potentially we get a bounce for the rest of the market. And we see, I still think Solana probably gets back to all-time highs in Q1 and potentially takes them out early next year. So nothing's really changed from that perspective. Obviously, Pepe as well is coming down. It's just front run a retest of the previous all-time high from earlier on in the year here. So obviously I was saying this sort of yellow box would be a great place to pick up some Pepe. We've come very, very close to that. So potentially the low for Pepe might be in. It might obviously roll over if we get one more flush and actually tag that level, properly tag that level, maybe even wick through it to catch any stops, any orders that are just below that level before making another attempt higher. But right now it's looking like a pretty nice reversal candle for Pepe. So we just have to carry on with this momentum. Bulls just have to step in here and stop us from breaking down lower. And I do think we will start to probably sort of grind on sideways and eventually make our way higher. Obviously, that trend line's now been invalidated. So really, we're starting to play within this range. And like I say, the midpoint for this range is this 0.5 level. So if we can get back above that, that's really what I'm looking at for Pepe to then initiate a move to challenge its all-time highs again. So you've got the levels there for the majors. Let's look at the DXY, because the DXY went on a massive pump, obviously closing at new swing highs. So a new local high for the DXY, and it's looking bullish here. I think the DXY probably continues, and maybe it makes its way back up to this level that we've highlighted here, around about sort of 110. If we just put on a Fibonacci retracement from swing high to swing low, we can see that we're going to have the 618 coming into play soon at 108. We've got the 786 at 111, and we've obviously got this order block here that is around about sort of 110. Obviously, this sort of marked our sort of down move, our sort of break of trend and capitulation in the dollar all the way down to 100 last time it sort of broke through this level. So potentially we're going to come back up and retest some of these key levels. And I expect at some point maybe the dollar gets a little bit stuck and starts to either consolidate again or roll over. But it does look like the dollar probably does want to push a little bit higher here. Potentially that coincides with another retest or a leg slightly lower in crypto. Obviously, the main market that got hit yesterday was the Nasdaq. So, Nasdaq really selling off. We talked about this on the emergency stream. The fact this has come down to the zero point 0.5 level, obviously coming in to some major support here, which was previous resistance, and we've started to bounce off of that. So, I do expect the Nasdaq to start to grind its way back up again and potentially make its way higher. I mean, Goldilocks scenario, I think, for crypto and anybody holding stocks would be a bit of a V reversal here. Obviously, anybody that had sort of taken a position here probably wants to see that, but there's always the risk of markets coming down and retesting. They do like to do that. If we just look back at sort of previous lows, usually we get a bit of a retest. We saw not quite going all the way down. We saw a higher low there. Obviously, after this one, we did come down, make a higher low. So usually you get this type of pattern where the price will sort of bounce and then it will come back down a second time. If we can actually sort of bounce up, get a decent bounce up, maybe back to around sort of 21.7, 21.8, and then we come down and we make a higher low on the Nasdaq and find support. Maybe we make the higher low around these prices here, which coincides with this week, or maybe we come down and make a higher low at these highs here back towards the 0.5, then stocks for me will be looking good for a recovery higher. So obviously the S&P, similar kind of thing, similar kind of path, sort of rolling over aggressively, but starting to recover here. So obviously same things apply for the S&P. So yeah, really, we just want to see these lows hold on stocks. Obviously, going back to Bitcoin, we want to see this low here hold for Bitcoin. So I would say it's probably not a time to be rushing into positions or racing into positions. Obviously, we're still holding the ascending channel here. So there's no massive cause for concern whilst Bitcoin remains in this ascending channel. Things are still looking fairly good to me. And like I say, if we can get above or close above this 102,000 level and start to see some constructive price action, I think that would be the best case scenario for us. And we can start to attempt to make our way higher. Like I say, there is some liquidity above 105,000. So if we do get back above this midpoint of this channel, then I expect we could see some further some further acceleration to the upside, and potentially we come in and we attack the 110,000 to 111,000 level if we do actually get back to the top of this channel. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up there. Obviously, thank you very much for watching. Big 24, 48 hours then. Let's see where we go from here. I'll be back later on with another stream, maybe not another one today unless we see things go really crazy, but definitely again tomorrow. So if you have enjoyed the stream, sorry, but I've got to say this, please do smash the like, hit subscribe if you want to keep up to date. Like I say, whether the market is sort of healthy and going up, or if the market is starting to crash, I want to be in this with you. I want to be making regular content, frequent content, no matter whether we're up or down, whatever's going on. So hopefully some of you appreciated the stream I did last night. I was pretty tired when I did that. I've been flying yesterday as well. But yeah, very committed to obviously being with you and doing what I can and getting through this all together. And like I say, hopefully you're all safe in your positions. Like I say, if you're not entered or if you have been shaken out, just maybe give it a little bit of time, see if we get some sort of retest. I don't think there's any need to sort of rush into the market right now, but I do think things are looking fairly good as they are. A lot can change in 24 hours, so let's see where we are tomorrow. But I'm going to leave it there. Have a wonderful day and talk to you all again on the next one. GM.